She was a radio host, 20 years in media advertising sales. Author of a book, Construction Zone for Women 40 Plus. She's working on a new online show called Excellence Unlocked. Her next book is going to be written later this year. If I tell you any more than that, I'm going to give her story away. So I'm going to let Tracy McLeod tell you the story. Give it up for Tracy.
Find your voice. Find your voice. Find your voice. As children, many of us are taught just that. I was not taught that lesson. My lessons were drastically different. My lessons were simple. There were 3 cardinal rules in my house. Keep your head down. Attract no attention. And speak to no one. Now you may be wondering why. How can that be what you're raised in? The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, is I was born into a bike gang. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, my baby pictures are on Harleys, and I'm not hanging on to cute little bunnies. But what else? What else does that mean? You see, when you're born into something, that's your normal. That's all you know. So for me, that's what I knew. It wasn't until I went to kindergarten that there were, minor hints I might be a little bit different than the rest. I remember the first day of school. It was so exciting. The morning was a blast. We colored, we played, we had recess. And then lunchtime came. And this amazing game started happening before my eyes. We all sat around the table. And everybody was opening their bags, and tradesies were happening. Tradesies. Juice boxes for pop and chips for cookies and sandwiches. I wanted in that game. Quickly open my bag, look in. You see, in my bag, I did have a bologna sandwich, but I also had drugs that I had to drop off later that night. Closed my bag. No tradesies. Not today. So, a little pouty from that came the next event in kindergarten, where sweet Miss Adams said, "Okay, children, tidy up, grab your mats, it's nap time." What? I had a part-time job. I wasn't doing nap time. And you have to, come with me on this journey. She wanted us to grab mats and lay completely exposed on a floor. No. Now, I did what I only knew to do and what I thought was normal. So, sweet Miss Adams, sadly, I pulled out a butterfly switchblade and said, "I don't do naps." The color drained from that poor woman's face. She went white as a ghost, and I really didn't understand why. I wasn't going to hurt her. I just needed my point heard, and this is typically how we did that. Well, I got home that night, and I did in fact get in trouble. You see, I broke the cardinal rule. My rules were simple. Keep your head down, attract no attention, and speak to no one. Apparently, pulling a switchblade on your kindergarten teacher didn't quite comply with that. Who knew? So I listened to these rules, and I embraced them. And for years, I would watch the other children playing, fascinated by them, confused, but truly starving to have something in common with these kids. I remember it was grade 2 or 3, and little Betty invited me over to her playhouse. I'm like, I got a clubhouse. I got this. I remember going to little Betty's house so excited. Finally, something in common. The clubhouse was a dollhouse. A little tamer than my version. I didn't invite her to our clubhouse. Just didn't seem right. See, it's interesting because the children were playing with Barbies and trucks. But my world was very different. You see, I had a part-time job. I was delivering packages. And on many a nights, I was bringing my very drunk mother home out of bars. That was my reality. But I still had those 3 rules in my head. Head down, no attention, speak to no one. And on the nights where the violence got so crazy, I remember being under my bed, crying silently, silent. And when it got really, really nuts, I would open my mouth to scream, but nothing would come out. It was later that CAS would end up taking me away from my mother. Strange, the last thing she said to me was, "What did you say?" From there, I flew on a plane across Canada to my real-life superheroes, my grandparents. On the verge of retirement, these 2 incredible people said, "Yes, I'm going to raise that child." Now, coming from the environment I was from, let's say I was wiser than my years. So I understood a lot, and I was willing to put up with a lot. To give you an idea on how big that contrast was, in 1 month I went from Harleys, bars, to drunken violence, to a house in the country, white knee socks, and Holly Hobby dresses. I gotta say, it took me a bit of time before I really embraced the dresses, but certainly something I was willing and more than happy to embrace. And, you know, for the most part, we had a really normal life. You know, in the summer, we would get in the Winnebago and we would travel all across Canada and the US. It was amazing. And to the outside world, it seemed very normal. And it was, until my mother would come and stay, and then the chaos and violence would come back in. When I was in high school, I got word that the man that I called my father had been murdered. And it was across all the papers, all the radio stations, all the TV stations. It was a media frenzy. You see, he was at the top of the food chain in his club. And not only did his club come, but many other club members came from other gangs. He was deeply respected and a good man. Strange that that day we never spoke about it. In fact, we've never actually spoken about it. In fact, we're speaking about it now. It's crazy. You know, in my grandparents' house, we also had additional rules, like, you know, be careful, what are the neighbors gonna think? You know, don't put your hand up too much in school, you're showing off. If you're good at something, well, don't tell people, you're bragging. Deeply enforcing to keep your mouth shut. And you know, I would go to open my mouth, but then I would close it, and nothing would come out. I was safe, and I was okay. As time went on, you know, I became an adult, I got married, I had 2 amazing children. I was living the dream. I had a long career in media. I had a home office, which meant I got to work at the job I loved, plus be with my children. And yes, I've pretty much seen every arena in this province because I was a hockey mom. I didn't have a voice, but I was happy. And I had it all. 28-year relationship, 20 years in media, great job, amazing kids. I had it all. Until I didn't. You know, an interesting thing happens. I didn't realize that I was putting labels on me. I had personal labels, such as, mother, wife, daughter, sister, many. But then what I also realized is that's going to happen later. I was attaching my budget to my personal value at work. When I started in media, I had a budget of $100,000. In 2006, my budget went to $360,000, and in 8 years later, I was at a $20 million budget. I was on top of the world. And I wore that. I wore that with pride. Imagine these stickies covering me like armor, each one representing something. And then the glue, now you can fall. The glue on the stickies started to fall, one at a time. My grandfather died. My grandmother died. My 28-year relationship ended. I moved from the country to a city alone and living on my own for the very first time. And then the department that I worked for got completely shut down and we were all asked to leave. 3 weeks after that, I was booked for emergency surgery, and after that, I had 4 bouts of pneumonia to round out the year. All of my labels had fallen. Every single one. I was standing naked, not knowing who I was. I remember thinking, gosh, do I just lean down and start to pick one up? And for the first time when I opened my mouth, a voice came out. And it looked something like this. No. And then what happened after the no is I just kept saying yes. Yes to trying something new. Yes to expanding my comfort zone. Yes to investing in me. Yes to learning new skills. Yes, 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 yes to me. Wow. You see, it's interesting. I was never those labels at all. It took me losing everything to actually find me. And what did I find? I found my voice. I found my truth. I found my passion. I was never a biker, white knee socks, or a $20 million budget. That was never who I was. I am not a label. We are not a label. It's with this voice that I have written the book, that I share and I speak and I use my voice now. It's with this voice that I stand on the stage tonight. It is my passion and my belief that we are in this together. And I am a huge advocate of love. And one of my favorite mantras is lock arms and rise together. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my voice. Thank you.